The babysitter shrugged and went back to the couch. She turned the TV on and started browsing through Netflix. And then the phone rang again. She picked it up. It was the same man. He laughed and said, "Have you checked on the children?" And then he hung up. The babysitter decided that someone must be playing a practical joke on her, so she went back to watching TV. At about 9:30, the phone rang again. This time the man said, "Why haven't you checked on the children?" And he laughed for a long time. "Why are you doing this?" the babysitter said. But he hung up. She decided enough was enough, so she dialed 911. The police dispatcher told her that if he tried to call again, she should keep him on the line as long as possible, and that way they'd be able to tell where the call was coming from. At 10 o'clock, the phone rang. It was the man again. He laughed and said, "Very soon now." The babysitter remembered what the police dispatcher had told her, but before she could think of anything to say to keep him on the line, there was a click as he hung up. Immediately, the phone rang again. It was the police. "Are you alone in the house?" the dispatcher said. The babysitter explained that she was watching 2 children while their parents were out. "Take the children next door. The police are on their way." The babysitter asked why. "Because," the dispatcher said, "the calls are coming from inside the house."
Who's next?
Rachel had gone to town that night to see a basketball game. Now she was on her way home. As she drove out of the parking lot, she noticed a red pickup truck following her. A few minutes later, the truck was still behind her. When she changed her speed, the driver of the truck changed his speed. And when she changed her speed, the driver of the truck changed his speed. Then the driver of the truck turned on his high beam, flooding the car with light. He probably wants to pass me, she thought. Then he turned them off, and then he turned them on and off again. "I've got to get away from him," she thought. She drove home over a back road. When she turned on that back road, so did the truck. He turned on his high beams again and left them on for almost a minute. Then he turned them off. Rachel went even faster, but the truck was still right behind her. Then he turned his high beams again. His high beams up again, and now he left them on. Soon Rachel got into her driveway and leapt out of the car. She ran into the house screaming, "Call the police!" to her father. When the police came and started to arrest the man, he pointed to the girl's car and said, "You don't want me, you want him." Behind the driver's seat was a man with a knife. As the driver of the truck explained it, the man had slipped into the girl's car just before she left school. And he had thought about getting the police, but was too afraid to leave her. So he followed her, and every time the man with the knife came up to overpower her, he turned on his high beams, and the man dropped down, afraid somebody would see.
Me and my dad were driving home from a cheer meet I had earlier in the day. We were driving down Archer Avenue, and to the left, right in front of the little brick room, I saw a young-looking lady with beautiful blonde curls and a beautiful white gown. My dad, for no reason, slowed the car to a stop, rolled down the window, and called to the woman. "Do you need a ride home, miss?" She looked at him, nodded, and got in the car. She told him her address, and my dad started to drive in that direction. We got closer to Resurrection Cemetery, and as soon as we were in front of the old gates, she asked my dad to stop the car. So he did, thinking maybe it was a shortcut she had. He opened the door, left the car, opened the gates to the cemetery, and walked into the thick fog that covered the ground. This freaked my dad out a little bit. So we drove to the address she had given us because she had left her scarf in the car. We drove until we got to the house. We rang the doorbell and an old woman answered the door. We showed her the scarf and said, "Yes, this belongs to my daughter Mary." We told her how we drove the girl home. She said, "You must be mistaken. Mary has died 5 years ago." At this point, me and my dad were freaking out a little bit. I mean, we drove home a dead person. Who would be freaked out about this? So, the next day, we went to Resurrection Cemetery, where we had seen the girl walk in. On a gravestone in the middle of the cemetery was a gravestone with her name on it and a picture frame next to it. It was the same girl with the beautiful blonde curls as we had driven home the night before.
A long time ago, in the big thicket of East Texas, there lived an old man in a log cabin all by himself. He couldn't fit every log for that cabin all by himself. He collected and placed every stone in the fireplace all by himself. And when he was hungry, he'd go out a-hunting all day long, all by himself. If he caught anything, he'd bring it home and cook it right there on the fireplace. But if he didn't catch anything, he'd make himself up a big old pot of beans. Now, folks, if y'all went into the big thicket tonight and looked for that log cabin, y'all wouldn't find it. It's long gone. But if the moon is out and the breeze is blowing, y'all might find that fireplace. And if you go out by that fireplace long about 10 o'clock tonight, go stand there in the moonlight and listen. You'll hear it. After a while, you can make out the words. Tally-po, tally-po, I got my tally-po. And that's the story of the East Texas tally-po.
It's audience participation time. We're going to all help you do this, so it won't be hard. Here comes our zombie people. They're going to assist you in learning. We all had a spot. Let's go on and have your spot.
Okay. Too far back, we're not going to
No, you're going to be standing up like everybody else. And we're going to be, yeah.
Come in.
So.
Oh, okay. I went to the back last time.
Oh, I know, 3 5, but
What was like right here?
there aren't going to be that many people there.
No, in the aisles. Just be in the aisles, not in the rows, because people will be sitting in the rows. In the aisle. There you go. Wait a moment. Hold.
Okay.
You don't made us she's shorter at the front?
I think shorter in front should be good, don't you?
We're going to do a quick sound check of the piano. Go ahead, Em.
Maybe time for
Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it. But I don't know if when everybody's singing, if I'll be able to hear it. The whole audience, depending on how many people that is.
Well, I don't think that you have to worry too much
Okay.
about the audience overpowering.
Okay.
All right, I think we're good. I think the levels are good. Let's start again. Go on backstage, and I'll call you out.
Take this
Everybody backstage, and I will call you out. Everybody backstage, and I will call you out. Don't go backstage.
I'm so confused.
It's audience participation time. But don't worry, our great cast of zombies will come out and help you learn the words as we sing them. They'll be singing along, so it'll be easy for you. here's what we want you to sing. All we want to do is eat your brains. That's easy, right? Ready?
Yeah.
Let's all try it. All we want to do is eat your brains. That's it. That's what we're going to do. So,
My section was the best.
it sounded good over there. We can have a contest. I guess we could try that. All right. Now, you're going to need to do that because our story is a musical story. And it's the story of Tom, who worked late night at his office. He went to get a cup of coffee because he had to stay and get his job done, and he was getting sleepy. So he went into this small cafeteria in the office, poured himself a cup of coffee, and as he was drinking it, he looked at the bulletin board. There was a sign on the bulletin board, and that sign said, "If you don't believe in life after death, then you've never been here at closing time." He brought his coffee, what was left of it, back to his desk and sat down. And then as he sat down, he heard thrashing on the floor of footsteps. And he looked up from his cubicle out into the office, and he saw Barb. Barb, I just talked to her yesterday. Why is Barb walking so oh my God, Barb's a zombie. He got up, he ran away so that he wasn't caught by the zombie. He ran into the office and locked a door. He waited and waited, and he heard, I don't know what that sound means.
Lightning.
Lightning?
Yeah, that's lightning.
Oh, that's what it is. Well, we're not swimming, so it's okay. So he was in the office, he locked the door. All of a sudden he heard scratching and pushing and pounding on the door. And then silence. But then, under the door, slipped a memo. He picked up the memo, and he read it. It started regarding your brains.
Hey Tom, it's Barb from the office down the hall. It's good to see you, buddy. How have you been? Things have been okay for me, except for I'm a zombie now. Really wish you'd let us in. Think I speak for all of us when I say we understand why you folks might hesitate to submit to our demands. But here's an FYI, you're all gonna die screaming, all we
Wanna do is eat your brains.
We're not unreasonable, I mean no one's gonna eat your eyes.
All we wanna do is eat your brains.
We're at an impasse here, maybe we can compromise. Open up the doors, we'll all come inside and eat your brains. I don't want to nitpick, Tom, but is this really your plan? Spend your whole life locked inside a mall. Maybe that's okay for now, but someday you'll run out of
brains.
We're not unreasonable, and no one's gonna eat your eyes.
All we want to do is eat your brains.
We're at an impasse here, maybe we should compromise. If you open up the doors, we'll all come inside and eat your brains.
All we want to do is eat your brains. We're not unreasonable. I mean, we're not gonna eat your eyes. All we wanna do is eat your brains.
We're at
An
an
impasse here. Maybe we should compromise. Open up the door. We'll all come inside and eat your brains. Very good, very good. Thank you all for helping the song.
I was so freaking hearing that song. I was walking out of the balcony and I was so exhausted.
And now Steve will tell us the story of the appointment in Samaria.
Many years ago, when the country of Iraq was called Persia, there lived, well, let's start over again because I keep forgetting about that. Many years ago, when the country of Iraq was called Persia, death was pictured as a beautiful woman, and she would walk amongst the people in the marketplace. And you know that type, you might catch a glimpse out of the eye and you would look and you wouldn't see anybody. Or a shadow would pass by. But was it really a shadow? But she would walk amongst the people and she would beckon to those she needed. Otherwise, she would go about her business and the people would go about their business. Now, there lived a wealthy merchant in Baghdad, and they had a servant, Ahmed, and the wealthy merchant was going to have a spectacular banquet at his house. So Ahmed went out into the marketplace to find the freshest fruits and vegetables, the best figs, the best pomegranates, the best apricots for his master's table. And he was strolling through the marketplace and he saw a shadow outside his eyes, and he looked. He saw a figure, didn't pay much attention. So he went about his business, came across a marvelous marketplace booth, marvelous nuts, fantastic flowers, absolutely beautiful. And as he was there picking out the items, he noticed a beautiful woman staring at him. And he stopped and caught her gaze. And she beckoned to him across the marketplace. He froze in fear. This must be death calling to me, he thought. She wants me now. I must flee. And he ran out of the marketplace, scurried home to his master, and went to his master and said, "Master, master, death is after me. Can I please borrow your fastest horse and ride to Samaria and get away, because death is beckoning to me in the marketplace?" The master, being the kind soul that he was, said, "Of course, take my fastest horse, flee to Samaria." So Ahmed did. He grabbed the fastest horse, rode as fast as he can, because he wanted to get to Samaria before night fell. He did not want to be caught in the dark in Baghdad. Now the master, his marvelous banquet put on the backside because his servant was fleeing to Samaria, thought, why is death out after my servant today of all days? I wonder, do you suppose she's still in the marketplace? So the master went to the marketplace and he strolled up and down. He found the booth where Ahmed had found the beautiful flowers and nuts. And he stood there and he looked. And there was this beautiful woman. And the master, not being afraid of death, walked over to her and said, "Why? Why did you beckon to my servant and scare him so? He fled to Samaria." And Death looked at her and said, "Well, I didn't mean to frighten him. I just wanted to remind him of our appointment in Samaria tonight."
This is an old tale from Spain. Don't worry, it's only the poisonous ones who are dangerous.
About a mile west of here on Washington Street, there used to be an old white house with a long front porch and tall white pillars. Stuff happens, stuff happens. Look, this is Mama. Her dress is embroidered with roses. A few centuries ago, there was a girl, and her name was Eliza. She was a very pretty girl, and this was when, America hasn't been created yet, so she was living in a fort called Fort Union. She had recently moved from the East, and where her family used to live, and she so missed the East. She had loved it, but she was forced to move. Now, in Fort Union, there were the Indians there that they were kind of mean Indians, because, settlers were coming and taking their land. And they were called the Apache Indians. One day the Apache had stolen a wagon full of supplies for the settlers, trying to scare them off, but their attempt didn't work. Now, because Eliza was a very beautiful woman, all the men wanted her hand in marriage. But none wanted her hand more than Lieutenant William Sutter. One day he worked up the courage and asked her out and asked her to marry him. She said yes, but not because she loved him, only because she knew he would take her back to the East. She was planning to cancel the wedding anyways. Now, one day, Lieutenant Sutter had learned that he was assigned some troops to go and retrieve that wagon load of supplies that was stolen from the Apache. It was night before they had to leave, and he and Eliza were alone together. He asked her to dance, and she said, No, I'm too tired." And he said, "But darling, if I don't return—" "Oh, hush," she said. "Of course you'll return. And if you don't, I promise I will never take another hand in marriage." He got down on one knee, kissed her hand, looked her straight in the eye, and said, "Then when I come back, I promise you a dance." The next morning, before Eliza woke up, Sutter and his troops took off. They thought they were well prepared for the Apache, but soon the Apache ambushed them. Sutter had been separated from his troops in a cloud of dust. When the dust settled, his troops looked for Sutter, but he was nowhere to be found. They gave up, going back to the Fort Union, and relayed the sad news to everyone. Everyone noticed that Eliza, she wasn't very sad about the loss of her fiancé. She didn't cry at all, and people weren't even surprised when she took another hand in marriage. He was to take her to the East after they were married. Now, before they left for the East, Eliza and her fiancé were thrown a nice engagement party. There were drinks and an orchestra, and everyone was having a good old time. They didn't even notice the storm that was coming in. Soon, in the middle of the waltz, the doors burst open, blowing out the wind coming in, blowing out almost all of the candles in the room. Everyone, somewhat caught by surprise, turned towards the doorway, only to see a figure standing there in a dirty old lieutenant's uniform with gray skin and a long gash going across the forehead. Everyone noticed who this was. They knew that this was Sutter, but it wasn't actually Sutter. This was Sutter when he was dead. Everyone, very panicked now, ran to the corners of the room. Everyone except for Eliza, who stood, petrified with fear. She stared as Sutter limped towards her. He put his hand around her waist and his arm on her shoulder. and he motioned to the orchestra to play. They started going round and round the room in a circle, Eliza's pale face staring up at Sutter. Then the orchestra began playing faster and faster. Sutter and Eliza dancing faster and faster until they were dancing at an inhuman speed, until they were just a blur of gray and white. Someone even noticed that Eliza had appeared to have fainted halfway through the dance. Finally, the orchestra had slowed down. Sutter, so gently, placed Eliza down on the floor. He looked at everyone in the room and said, "I promised her a dance when I came back. I have gotten that dance and fulfilled my promise." With that, he turned around, the doors slamming shut behind him. After he left, everything was a blur of motion. Eliza's fiancé ran up to her and tried, with no luck, to revive her. The next day, Sutter's troops went out to look for his body. Sure enough, they found him lying in a ditch. Same dirty uniform he had the night before. Same gray skin he had the night before. And the same long gash growing across his forehead like the night before. They buried his body right then and there. Then they hurried back, because they decided, because Sutter loved Eliza so much, and she, apparently, had loved him. They went back, gathered up Eliza's body, and buried her right next to Sutter, where she would lay forever.
Nicole and Mark were two college students on their way to a costume Halloween party. Nicole was dressed in a long, beautiful medieval gown. She was going as Guinevere, queen to King Arthur. Mark was dressed in an old pair of sweats and Nike tennis shoes. He claimed he was going authentic as a jogger. So they climbed into Mark's old Toyota, and it took 3 tries for the car to get started. And then it was making strange noises. Mark admitted that the car had been having a bit of trouble lately, but he assured Nicole that they would get to the party and back just fine. A bit of trouble turned out to be nearly stalling at every intersection. The party was being held way out in the boonies, in an old abandoned barn. As they made their way slowly along the old country road, they saw fewer and fewer cars, until finally they saw no other cars. There were no street lights, not even signs, and a dense fog had been forming during the course of their drive. They were so far out that they didn't get cell phone reception. Nicole kept checking. She was hoping to text her friends that they were running late and to ask them if they didn't show up within the hour to send help. No reception, no help. The longer they drove, the more nervous Nicole became. Mark decided to turn on the radio to help pass the time and to cover up the disturbing noises the car was making. But the only station they could get was a news station. He was about to turn it off when a warning bulletin came on. The police are warning everyone in the North Valley area that convicted killer Owen Helms, the so-called hangman, has escaped from the criminal asylum at Pinecrest. That's just on the other side of the valley, Nicole cried. She was about to insist that he turn the car around when 2 things happened. The radio program dissolved into crackling static. The car bucked twice and died. Mark used what momentum was left to steer the car to the side of the road. They came to a stop under an old tree. Condensed fog dripped from an overhanging branch. Mark got out, popped the hood, and started fiddling with the engine. "Try it now," he'd call every few minutes. But when Nicole turned the key, all she got were clicks. Finally, Mark decided he was going to have to go for help. Nicole begged him not to leave her there all alone, especially with the hangman on the loose. But she reluctantly agreed that there was no way she was going to get very far in her long dress. Mark tried to lighten the mood, saying it was a good thing he had decided to go as a jogger. It was going to come in handy now. But his levity had no effect on Nicole's anxiety. He tried to reassure her.
If you're really worried about the hangman, climb into the back seat and hide on the floor and cover yourself up with the old blanket. I'll leave the keys with you for safekeeping. And when I return, so that you'll know it's me, I'll knock on the roof of the car 3 times like this. Nicole nodded her head nervously. Mark kissed her goodbye, watched her lock the doors, and then waved as he jogged into the heavy fog. Nicole checked her cell phone one last time. No bars, and her battery was running really low. So she turned her phone off, climbed into the back seat, arranged herself on the tight space on the floor, and covered up with the old, musty blanket. How long she waited there, she wasn't sure. When her legs began to cramp, she brought her watch up to her face, carefully so as not to disturb the blanket, and read the illuminated dial. Less than half an hour had passed, but it felt more like years. Suddenly, she heard a knock on the door. She almost came out from under the blanket, but then she remembered that Mark had promised to knock 3 times. She had a sudden, sickening feeling that someone else was outside, trying to get into the car. Oh, please, please let it be Mark. Knock again. Oh, just once more, just once more. She almost laughed out loud with relief. Her blood turned to ice. She froze, barely daring to breathe, as the knocks continued, spaced just about the same. Each one was like a fist in her stomach. At first, she knew it was the hangman trying to get in. And then she wondered if he was just so wacko that he was beating on the roof of the car like a child would beat endlessly on a toy drum. Finally, she thought maybe he knew she was in the car and he was just tormenting her before he smashed in a window. Oh, please, please, somebody help me. She heard heavy footprints on the gravel, voices, and a radio dispatcher coming over with instructions that she couldn't quite make out. And then mercifully, it stopped. Maybe it's Mark. Or the tow truck. Nicole sat up, looked out the window, and screamed. 2 men were looking through the window at her. In one terrifying, confused moment, she realized that they were police. "It's okay, young lady. You can come out now." Her shaking hand found the door. She climbed out unsteadily and said, "Where's Mark? Didn't he come with you? Walk straight towards me, straight towards the patrol car. Don't look back." Chills ran down her spine. She fought the urge to turn around and look behind her, fixed her eyes straight ahead, and made her way slowly to the safety of the patrol car. Just then, she felt a breeze, and she heard it again. She couldn't help it. She turned around and looked and saw Mark's body hanging from the branch over the car. It was swaying in the breeze. She watched in horror as one Nike-clad foot beat against the roof of the car.
And that's our show for